Time of the week, Cofield and Company. Michael Felder is up with us, our National College Football Insider, and I'll say a top 5 foodie / chef on the show. That's not an insult. We've got a lot of contributors on the show who love to cook. Man, you take the cake. You take the cake. The turkey stock is being worked on.
Yeah.
I looked at that big vat of juices. My Lord, you're ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, I got to do one more because you got to do. I like to when I make mashed potatoes, I'll boil my potatoes in stock instead of just water, so you get a little bit of flavor in there. Then the gravy I make for those comes with stock, and then I make a separate gravy that has giblets in it that goes on the stuffing.
Mhm.
And then when you make the stuffing, that stuffing also has stock, and so you need that turkey stock to go in there. So I got to make another batch of it. But yeah, I'm in. Listen, Thanksgiving, I'm all in on the Thanksgiving initiative. Like I understand most of your listeners are going to be like, once Halloween's done, it's Christmas time, and I'm like, no, Thanksgiving. If you ain't real about Thanksgiving, don't come at me.
I'm real about it, as you say, but I don't do any of the cooking. So I'm really real about Christmas. I am freaking out right now that I don't have 20% of my Christmas decorations up outside. That my plan was last night that I was going to come home and start hanging stuff. I haven't hung any of it. Now I'm already behind, and the Christmas season is ruined.
See, here's the thing. My mom, and I'll say this: my mom was so great about this. My birthday is November 25th. It's my birthday.
Oh,
My mom, she said, we will always wait for Christmas until
mm.
your birthday or Thanksgiving, whichever comes last. And so I don't have November Christmas. We have Christmas starts when it's either my birthday or it's Thanksgiving, and then after that. And Christmas for me was miserable because it was just like like I grew up in a house of, and this is not a bad thing. This is how I think Christmas should be, by the way. I grew up, Cofield, I grew up where my chores on Christmas were go out to the shed, go get the stuff, bring it in, and then don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. Do not touch anything. So my mom she set up the little town on the coffee table, and she decorated the tree. And our tree year to year would be, maybe it was a gold tree this year, maybe it was a blue tree this year, maybe it was this tree. But it was like, don't touch it. You're gonna make it like we don't have like my wife grew up in a house of like kid ornaments, and like it looked all weird and like messed up. And my mom grew up in a house that like you could take a picture of it for like Better Homes and Gardens. Like
oh
you could,
wow.
so like that's what how I grew up was like our Christmas tree is a statement piece, not a fun thing for kids. And also, don't touch it. Do not
Don't
touch
touch
it.
it.
Do not. If you touch this, you're in trouble. If you mess this up, you're in trouble. So,
Wow.
all right, let's talk some football. What do we
Yeah,
got?
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say my Christmas tree, and I've got like 7 now. I have to be
Ooh,
very careful. I'm just collecting them because we have cats, so they love to jump
yeah.
into it and knock the ornaments down. So, all right, on the football front, I know I'm gonna get irked, and I did the other day on the air. I
Mhm.
looked up at one of the TVs during the live show, and I see the CFP rankings, and I said to
Yeah.
myself, "This is a TV show. Don't do it.
Yep.
Don't do it." And
Yeah.
then I looked up, and I saw Ohio State 1 and Michigan 3, and I flipped out.
Yeah. I don't think that to me, Washington should be number two. Honestly, I still think Georgia should probably be number one. And
Of
that's
course.
not based on last year. It's more, I think if Georgia gets their, like, here's the thing. Okay, you know what? Let's flip it. Let me ask you. If Georgia gets their hands on Ohio State or Michigan, what do you think happens?
I think Michigan can compete. I don't think Ohio State can. I think Michigan is a touchdown to 10 points better than the rest of the Big Ten. But I think Georgia is better
Then all
than
of them.
Michigan. And we saw it this weekend when
Yeah.
Georgia was like, okay, recruiting time and rivalry time.
Yep.
And
Bingo.
I saw it's Felder up on Substack, and you were like, hey, Bowers wasn't there. And Georgia was like, we have to send a message. It's smash show time.
Yeah, and that's the point that I'm making, which is why I still put Georgia number one. I think Alabama's an interesting spot. I know Texas is ahead of them technically, but do you think that Steve Sarkisian wants to play Alabama again? Because I don't.
No, no.
Yeah, so I don't think so. And it's been interesting. I was way more bothered by the other stuff, right? Bothered by where Kansas was at 21. I think they've played better. I think Oregon State has played better as well. When we talk about the West Coast, and I look at Air Force, and Air Force for me is a team that, man, they've been really, really good. They've been, I don't think dynamic is the word, but what we've seen out of Air Force is a team that they only throw the ball 5 times a game, but one of those times is probably going to be a touchdown. So we gotta watch out for them. And then obviously, I know you guys are UNLV, you do UNLV, and that team's better than we ever thought. We thought that they would be this year, and it's great to watch them play. And so it's going to be interesting to see as UNLV progresses through the rest of that conference schedule if they can move up into the rankings. But it's also about who's watching who, and I don't like. I was talking to Ryan Shazier on the show. I do a show at Bleacher Report. We do it Tuesday night. And Shazier was like, USC shouldn't be ranked. They should not be ranked.
Oh, really? At all?
At all. Period. Done.
Wow.
0. And I was like, that makes sense. Like, Caleb Williams is a very good player, but you look at what they've done, like what have they achieved? Nothing. They just are living off that. And I don't want to like take away things from Georgia, a team that, back-to-back championships, but they don't have that same culture. They don't have that same ability. And man, my article for the Messenger goes up this week or goes up today actually. And Georgia has given up, hang on, let me make sure I get this right. They've given up 5 plays. Yep, there it is. They've given up 5 plays for 30 yards or more in 8 games. That's 1/2 of USC football. Like, are you kidding me? Like, there's a huge difference here. And then you can get into a little bit, but I think Air Force should be higher. I think Tennessee should be lower. I think Kansas should be higher. But at the end of the day, we're going to get to see Kansas play Kansas State, and they're all kind of clustered together. We're going to get to see them both play Oklahoma State. We're going to get to see UCLA play, Utah and USC. So it's all going to shake itself out. And everyone that's worried about Ohio State number 1 versus Michigan number 3, they're going to play each other. So it's going to sort itself out. I think the rankings make sense. I think the most interesting part of them to me, the 2 most interesting things for me, Cofield, are Oregon, Washington, and Texas and Oklahoma. Those are the 2 most interesting parts because Alabama's just sitting there waiting. And they're like a shark. Just they're not doing anything. They're not going to touch anybody. I'm going to let you guys, and I know they got LSU this weekend. As long as they get across this LSU hump, they're swimming in deep water. But as long as Oregon and Washington, we already know where they stand. Texas, Oklahoma if they have a rematch, Ohio State, Michigan have a rematch, 2 teams are going to be dropped down. Alabama's just going to whoop. Oh, by the way, we're in the playoff now.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the part. And
by the way, we snuck in. Alabama snuck in. We didn't see them.
Yeah. How did you get here?
Well, like you said, it does continue this weekend with is this a good test? They're only laying 3. How does LSU upset Alabama?
The LSU's their offense is really good. Offensive with Neighbors and Daniels. Daniels, I believe, should be a top 3 Heisman contender. So I love that out of them. But their defense is bad. It's not they can't get anything done. And I feel bad saying that because their defensive coordinator, Matt House, was the GA when I was at UNC.
Oh wow.
We didn't get along a lot, but he was there.
Okay.
And but he's that GA, and it's one of those things. Like, I'm not dumping on the guy. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. He worked under Pat Narduzzi, obviously. He's a good defensive coordinator. The problem at LSU is getting kids to commit to what you want them to do. And if it's not man defense, those kids are like, I'll just do my own thing. And it's a problem. Like, we saw it as a problem 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We've seen this be a consistent problem for them. So I'm curious to watch what this looks like with Milt. Like, I would not even, if I'm LSU, I wouldn't cover 20 to probably 12 yards. Wouldn't worry about it. He's not going to throw the ball there. He's either going to throw the ball from basically 10 and down, or he's going to throw the ball over 20 yards. That intermediate space, That's not, he doesn't live there. He doesn't like it. He doesn't make those throws. But he'll throw it 60 yards. And that 60-yard throw, you know what we call that? A touchdown. And so that's the thing that I'm curious to see what happens in this game. They both had a bye week. So I'm very interested to see what this looks like.
Michael Felder's with us from Learfield, Bleacher Report, The Messenger. You know who's interesting, sneaky, is Ole Miss. They control their own destiny. Now, they're going to be at Georgia, but you never know. They play Texas A&M this weekend. Then they've got their break game against UL Monroe and then Mississippi State. What if they finish out with one loss? They need a lot of breaks in front of them, but Kiffin's got something to shoot for.
They got to have Alabama lose, right? They got to have Alabama lose. So they're not fully in control. But if Alabama loses to LSU this weekend, then they're in trouble. Or they lose to Auburn in a tough game in the Iron Bowl, sure. But if here's the thing, if Ole Miss wins out and they're a one-loss team, and let's say Michigan stumbles or Ohio State stumbles, all of a sudden they're in rarefied air that they've never been in, where it's like, oh, we can get in. And I will say this. I've said it before. I said it on this show. I've said it on every show I've been on. I love Lane Kiffin. I think that what he does in terms of showing things against teams he knows he can beat is really admirable, because he makes his team run plays that they'll never run in a real game. But he makes you waste practice time on said plays. But if they beat A&M, Georgia, if they beat Georgia, come on. If they beat Georgia, where do they go? Where do you think they go if they beat Georgia?
You mean in a rankings or
from the rankings? Yeah, for the rankings.
I mean, we have to see all the other stuff unfold, but I mean, they're certainly, if they beat Georgia, they're what, top 6, top 7?
At least
they're
minimum.
10 right now.
Yeah, they're 10 right now, minimum. They have to go ahead of Georgia. So how far do we move Georgia down? How far do we move them up? So they're at least top 6. But if we move Georgia down to 6, they're probably in the 5 or the 4 slot. They're living their life. And listen, by the way, just sidebar, the Florida State disrespect also is frustrating. But if they win, if they beat A&M, Georgia, they are going to be they're going to be sitting there like, we never thought this could happen to us. So I'm looking forward to it.
Does Clemson get back on track a little? Obviously, their goals are a lot lower now than a national title. And also, it's Notre Dame they're taking on. And also, the Dabo rant on Trey from Spartanburg.
The Dabo rant is, I mean, that's Dabo. And it's one of those things where, like, if it was me, if I'm the producer, I just cut it off. But at the end of the day, the reality is that you leave that on because it makes you, me, every other radio show I've done this week talk about it. But the big thing for me is just, I look at it and this is Dabo's just, he's, in the words of Forrest Gump, I'm not a smart man. And he's not. And he's never claimed to be.
Okay.
And that's the reality for him. Like, I understand where he comes from. I'm from the South. I live here. I understand, like, Dabo speaks, like, if Dabo was at Clemson when I was getting recruited, my mom would have been in love with it. He makes you go to church every Sunday. He makes you do all this stuff. And then you hear folks, obviously, you try to use that against him now. And it's not fair. But it's those things where people are like preying on your downfall. And I don't think that that's right, but I understand where it comes from. So for me, I try to keep it on the field and on the coaching staff. And when I look at Dabo, I see a guy who he hires his friends, he hires people that he trusts. And then the 2 times that he's hired people that he didn't really know, Chad Morris, Venables. What happened? Wow, we're good. We're really good. The times that he hires his friends, Billy Napier, Taj Boyd, CJ Spiller. Oh, this isn't good. This is bad. This is bad. Bail out, bail out. So that's what's going to have to happen. They're going to have to make some major coaching changes right now. And I don't like, the whole Jesus thing, like the Jesus shaming thing.
Right.
But what I do recognize is that you can't use that as a shield when the reality of it is you got to hire smarter people around you, not just people that will walk in lockstep with you.
Notre Dame going to win the game?
Whew. Man, that's a hard one. I know folks can't see this, but
Oh, they can. We generally put the video out.
okay, good. Well, they can see it then. And yes, I think Notre Dame wins the game. This team is just like between the freelancing and from Kate Klubnik and not the unwilling. That's something I was talking to Eric McLean and Roddy Jones last week, and they were like, "Why? How come quarterbacks just get to stay in the game? They just get to stay in the game. If a offensive lineman or a defensive back or a running back did what Cade did, they would not see the light of day." And the quarterback is like, we don't want to hurt his feelings. We want to make sure he feels okay. So yeah, I think Notre Dame's going to win. I'm looking forward to them winning because this is a team that's what are they in the top 15 right now? I'd like because I really would love to see Notre Dame with respect to the rankings. I'd love to see Notre Dame go out there. I'd love to see Notre Dame Ole Miss. I'd love to see Notre Dame, possibly Alabama or Notre Dame Texas. So yeah, I hope they win this football game, and I think they will.
Michael Felder's with us. You want to sign up for his weekly columns at It's Felder at Substack.com. Let's hit some West Coast stories here.
Yeah.
I got to see Fresno up close as UNLV lost on the road. Mikey Keene this last week was probably 70%, but man, he's good. They've got good receivers, pretty stout defense. Hate to tell folks, but even with all these losses, and there were some close ones with Boise, not against Washington, but I think they figured out their quarterback rotation. I believe they have a top 5 running back in Ashton Genty. I think they're going to go into Fresno and win the game, as annoying as it may be for Mountain West Conference fans. I think they might be the better team.
They figured it out. Genty is really good. Like for me, he's must-see TV. Cannot beat that. I wanted to double back on UNLV, 6-2. What's the tenor of everything there? Because to me, like I understand it was a 1 touchdown loss to Fresno State, but at the end of the day, for me, that was a ball game that I was paying attention to. I was in. Like you tell me.
Totally different vibe in the past because they played Fresno the last 2 years to an 8-point loss and 7-point loss. And the attitude was like, good job, good effort. It's okay. There's some expectations now. So when they turned the ball over 3 times in the third quarter and gave up 24 unanswered, people were pissed off, and they had 2 drives at the end to get a touchdown. Some people are pissed off. So Odom in basically, what is it now? 9 months on the job has completely raised the expectations and the attitude of UNLV football fans. That's a great thing.
It's really good. I'm looking forward to this weekend. Obviously, when you see Boise State at Fresno State, that's going to be, as you mentioned, that's going to be an interesting one because if he can get, let me ask you this: if he can get 10% more healthy to get to the 80%, right, Mikey Keene?
Yeah.
Now we've got some issues, and when I say issues, I'm looking at like he can move around a little bit more and he can hit his targets and do those things. But at the end of the day, how much does it matter? Because Air Force is cooking.
Yeah.
They're cooking, dude. Like they are. I'm looking at the standings right now, and Air Force is 5-0. We got 3-1 Fresno, 3-1 UNLV, 3-1 Boise State. Air Force is cooking. And here's the other problem. This is the worst shark in the water is Wyoming. The worst shark, because they got UNLV coming up, and they got you guys coming up. Not this week, next week, right? And
yes,
Wyoming is the worst shark in the water because they truly slow you down and just make you play this like. I mean, they're not that dissimilar from Air Force. They slow you down, make you play their style of football, or make you at least deal with their style of football.
Yeah. No, power football at a high level. And on Air Force the rest of the way, I mean, they probably will get through. Well, they've got Army at Hawaii, then UNLV up there. Who knows what the weather will be. And then they go at Boise. So we'll see. We'll see. Last 2. Michael Felder's with us.
Yes, sir.
USC, can they win this 55-52 against Washington?
This might be the game that they want to play the most. That's how I'll put it. Because Washington, no, I don't think they can. Washington's defense is getting better. they're actually producing on defense. So I think USC is going to lose. They're going to lose on national television again, and we're going to see. I think this is where we start to talk about Penix, Heisman for real, because I think a lot of folks on the East Coast don't talk about it, but the reality of it is he belongs in that discussion.
Oregon State, very angry coming off their loss last week. Jonathan
Yeah.
Smith even said it after the game. The fake field goal from 20 yards out was completely ridiculous with 3 seconds left. They go into Colorado. I think they're going to win.
Yeah.
Can Deion handle this? Because he's starting to come unraveled in terms of the blame game and not taking it on himself. And I don't like the look. And I think people are, as sexy as he is, I think people will use this against him in recruiting. Like, you're going to play for a guy who's a me guy who may throw you under the bus or just tell you you're out. He may kick you out and take your scholarship if he believes that you're not getting the job done.
Yeah, my buddy Bomani, he hosts the Right Time. He said something very similar to what you said, where he's like, you can't keep telling these guys you're going to replace them if you want them to get better and you want them to keep giving good effort and you want them to keep working. The way that I look at it is I look at it as a player where there was a time at UNC we were terrified that Steve Spurrier was going to come and be our new head coach.
Wow.
Because all the rumors that we heard, and this had to be for the 05 going into 06 season, we thought they were going to hire Steve Spurrier, which ultimately is when South Carolina hired him. But they were like, he hates walk-ons, he hates backups, he's gonna get rid of you, and it made us like we felt horrible,
right?
And then if your head coach is doing that during the season, you got to be like, that's not good for you, for your psyche. And he's got these kids to play hard and they rally and they battle. But man, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep putting them down and expecting them to give you their max effort. Especially now when we look at the record and they're a team that's, they're 4-4. They're fighting to get to a bowl game. And guess what? The fight does not get easy for them. This is a team that's got to play. They play, again, you said they play Oregon State this weekend. Oregon State's a good football team, by the way. Like, that team is good. 6-2, just doing their thing. I love what they bring to the table. But you look at what Colorado has left. In Colorado, they've got, like, they might beat Vegas, because Vegas had them at what, 3.5? Is that right?
Yeah, they beat it.
So they beat Vegas.
Yep.
But between the way Arizona's been playing, which is the most insane team in the country, like, who knows what they're going to do week to week. Then you got Washington State, who's very good, and then Utah, who's even better. I don't think they're going to go to a bowl game with these next 4 games they have. They're not going to go to a bowl game.
Nope.
And so you're going to get to sit at home and just relax. And you got to look at, and all your players are going to look at you, and they're going to look at what's happened and have to figure out, do I want to keep playing for this guy who dumps on me all the time, who tells me that we aren't good and tells us that we aren't good enough? I just don't. I don't know what it. I don't know. It's rough. It's a really rough situation. And at the start, there was real accountability for him and the coaching staff, and he talked about it a lot. And now it's like, well, these guys just aren't good. We'll get new ones. And I'm like,
right.
These players aren't replaceable, man. Like,
right.
that's not how they want to hear their future.
Turkey stock recruiting is a family deal, and close the freaking doors. You can find all that up at It's Felder at Substack.com. You are the best. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.